SOS process and workshop. And thank you for taking the time out of your day, wherever you may be located, to attend today's webinar. Again, I'm Steve Bistritz, the developer of the SOS methodology and co-author of the new book, Selling to the C-Suite. On the screen, you should now see my contact information displayed, including my website address. I'd also like to introduce to you a special guest I have with us today on our webinar. Steve Tefero, Vice President of Channel Management for CyberShift, where he has an ownership position, and he's also been the VP of Sales at that company, is joining us. He has been using SOS extensively for more than 3 years now. I've asked him to join us so that he can tell you about the value he and his sales organization have received from the SOS process. I've also asked Steve to comment about the ease of use of using the SOS tool, and he will be doing that throughout the session today. So Steve, welcome.
Thank you, Steve.
During this webinar, you'll also be given a chance to ask questions. You should see an area on your control panel that allows you to submit a question, and it's a very easy process. I may try to answer some of those questions during the session, but I may decide to answer the question at the end if it makes more sense for me to do so. My main objective today is to provide you with an overview of the SOS workshop and methodology, and most importantly, to describe to you and to show you the value that SOS can deliver to your salespeople and to your organization. So to honor the time that your time, and for all of those of you who have logged in on time, let's get started. The SOS process is about taking a sales opportunity and developing a visual tool that can help professional salespeople analyze and manage those opportunities, enabling them to close more deals. So let me go forward and describe to you the SOS process and workshop. And you're going to see in the next slide a wheel that absolutely describes the process and also shows you, coincidentally, the workshop modules. So the first thing that's going to happen is that salespeople come to the one-day workshop having done some initial analysis on their sales opportunity, and they bring that information with them. So each salesperson is going to have an opportunity to work on his or own current sales opportunity. And if sales support people are coming, if marketing people are coming, they can team up with somebody at their table to do the same thing. However, we provide the SOS tool to salespeople directly in the workshop, and they get started working on that tool with their opportunity almost immediately. Because the first thing they're going to be doing is qualifying a sales opportunity. And we have an opportunity assessment process that I'm going to show you and describe very shortly. The second thing we're going to do is spend time aligning with the political landscape, identifying those people inside and outside the client organization who can help those sales people win the deal, but most importantly, they have the power and influence as it relates to the sales opportunity. The next thing we're going to be doing is setting a competitive sales strategy. What strategy do we need to win this deal? And how do we effectively go out there and manage the opportunity better, do a better job of winning? So we're going to set a competitive sales strategy, and then we are going to create the actions that align with that opportunity. So the next thing we're going to be doing is developing a value proposition and an action plan. And you'll see how we do that and how we go about it, not only throughout the workshop day, but then we consolidate our actions at the end of the day and, again, place them on our opportunity plan. The last thing we're going to be looking at doing is a test and review process. And I'm going to share with you the test and review process. Even though we don't actually do that during the one-day workshop, we start to understand what that test and review process is all about, and sales managers have an opportunity to follow up with their salespeople and effectively test and review the opportunity plans that are created. Now, during the workshop, we're going to be creating a 3-page opportunity plan. That's using the software tool, and I'm going to demonstrate the use of that tool a little bit later on in this session. So let's move forward and look at how do we go about the qualification process. The first thing is that for each sales opportunity, what I always tell salespeople is there are 3 compelling questions that they have to answer as it relates to the opportunity. And this is related to any opportunity that salespeople are pursuing. And you ought to look at these compelling questions at multiple times in a sales campaign. The first thing is, should we even be pursuing this opportunity? What's happening in the client environment that's creating the need for change, the need for our solution? Secondly, can we effectively compete for the opportunity? Do we have a solution that can be integrated into the client environment, and does that solution provide specific business value to the client, and can we articulate that business value and have the client understand it? More importantly is the fact that can that specific business opportunity differentiate us from our competitors, and how does it differentiate us from our competitors? And lastly, can we reasonably expect to win the opportunity? Are we aligned with the most powerful people in the client organization who can help us win the deal? Because if we're not, our competition probably is. So let's look at those 3 compelling questions in a little bit more detail and look at the underlying criteria for each of those 3 compelling questions. And this comprises what we call the opportunity snapshot. And you're going to see some colors come up on the screen for each of the 3 sectors as it relates to the total opportunity snapshot. And the opportunity snapshot is consisted of 3 compelling questions that I just went over with you. And now we're going to look at the underlying criteria. The only purpose of the color is to differentiate the compelling question. So all the criteria in red are associated with the first compelling question, should we pursue this opportunity? And the first thing is the opportunity aligned with some client business initiative? And is it an important business initiative that the customer has to implement? Secondly, is our sales opportunity funded by the client? What's the client's ability to fund the project? Does the project have discretionary funds that are earmarked for use for this particular opportunity that we're pursuing? And lastly, what's the client's driving reason to change? What's changing in the client environment that's creating the need for your solution? And as you're going to see with each of the sets of criteria for each of the compelling questions, not all criteria are created equal. And the criteria nearest the middle of the snapshot, some people call it a bullseye, is the most important. So criteria number 3 here, the client's driving reason to change, is the most important criteria within this set of 3 criteria. Now let's go to the second compelling question. Second compelling question is, can we compete for this opportunity? And again, can our solution be integrated into the client environment? First criteria associated with this is, what's the viability of our solution as seen from the client's perspective? Number 5 is, what kind of implementation resources, sales and implementation resources, both internally or with business partners, are required to win this deal? And do we have those resources available? And criteria number 6, what's the specific business value of our solution? And again, can we articulate that business value, and is it viewed by the client as specific business value? And again, that criteria is most important. The third set of compelling questions are under, can we reasonably expect to win this opportunity? And again, are we aligned with the most powerful people in the client organization who can help us win the deal? Criteria number 7 is, what's our ability to impact the client decision process? Do we have the ability to impact it, both the formal decision process and the informal decision process that may be taking place within the client organization? Criteria number 8 is, what's our level of executive credibility and support? Do we have some executive credibility and support within the organization? This could be from past deals that we've been associated with, or from our continued association with this client. And do we have some support within the client organization? Criteria number 9, are we aligned with the relevant executive? And probably the most important of all 9 criteria, not only within this group of 3, but are we aligned with that relevant executive? And we define the relevant executive as the executive who stands to gain the most or lose the most as a result of the application or project associated with this sales opportunity. And here again, this criteria is the one that is the most important within this set of 3. So if we look at the opportunity snapshot in its totality, here is what it looks like. And you can see the 3 compelling questions and the 9 criteria associated with those 3 compelling questions. Now, what's important about this is, as we go through this process in the workshop and we go through facilitating this process and facilitating the workshop, salespeople start to understand very quickly that these are the 9 criteria that they need to be looking at. But most importantly, they learn, these criteria as we go through the process. There's 3 criteria with each compelling question. Very easy process to learn, very visual from the salesperson's perspective. Then what we ask the salespeople to do is to rate and review each of those criteria for their sales opportunity. Review each of the 9 criteria, the ones I just described to you, and then rate them as favorable only if both of the following conditions are met. Number 1, the information is known and comes from a flawless source within the client organization. And secondly, that the information is positive and favorable to your company. Now, before we ask the salespeople to go ahead and create their own opportunity snapshot associated with the opportunity that they're pursuing, we actually give them a chance to, and a table team, to analyze an opportunity snapshot. And you can look at this snapshot right here, and again, right away, you can remember from what we were talking about before. Red is associated with the first compelling question, should we pursue this opportunity? Blue is associated with the second compelling question, do we have a solution that can be integrated into the client's environment? And third is associated with the last compelling question, do we have a reasonable chance of winning this opportunity? And you can see here that only 4 of the 9 criteria are colored in. Now, if you looked at this snapshot early in a sales campaign, that's probably okay. We should continue to pursue the opportunity. But if we're down the road and we spent 4 or 5 months pursuing this opportunity, and this is the opportunity snapshot that's produced for that opportunity, and we have to ask a harder set of questions. So let's take a look at the tool that's associated with this process. And what I'm going to do is to show you that tool right now. And here you see hopefully the first page of the tool. And I don't, there it is on the screen right now. And this is actually, and I didn't tell you this before because I didn't want you to shy away from it, but this is a tool that was developed in Excel. It was developed on a Visual Basic, it was developed in Visual Basic on an Excel platform. But it doesn't look anything like an Excel spreadsheet. So what you see here on the left-hand side of the tool are the 3 compelling questions and the 9 criteria that I went through with you. At the top of this page, this is the first page of a 3-page tool that we use to develop for the sales opportunity. And again, this is associated with qualification. And you can see here there's a help button, so that as we look at each of the 9 criteria, we have a help screen that gives us a little bit more information about each of the 9 criteria. So as we start to rate the criteria, we don't have to remember all of these underlying questions within each of those criteria. We have a help screen on the dashboard here to help us do that. Now, here's how we go ahead and rate an opportunity, and I'm going to show you. This is I created the snapshot that we used as the first example, but this might be an example of a snapshot being completed for a sales opportunity, a live sales opportunity. So I might put in here today's date, which is February the 25th. And just want to create that date. I'm sorry. And you can see that we have up to 3 dates that we can use, and if we need more dates, we just attach another screen, so it's no problem or issue. But what you also see on the first page here is other information that we're going to ask about the key criteria, the key numbers. Number 1, the client business initiative. Tell us a little bit more about that. The salespeople have to describe that. What's the client's driving reason to change, as you can see down there. And then 2 other things. Number 6, what's the specific business value of our solution, and what's our alignment with the relevant executive. Criteria number 3, 6, and 9, if you remember, are closest to the center of the circle. For this particular opportunity that I'm looking at right now, you can see that 3, 6, and 9 are not filled in. This enables the sales manager or sales executive to ask some key questions. Now, Steve Tafaro, I have you on the line. Let me ask you, what do you see as the value of this opportunity assessment tool, and how valuable has it been for your salespeople as you use it throughout the SOS process?
Well, thanks, Steve. This particular qualification phase of the is important because it's important for us to establish a formal process. We believe that selling is a business process, not an art. Like any other process, it needs to be measured and improved. What this does, it provides us with a set of questions and a formal way for salespeople, for all salespeople, to look at an account the same way. It aligns strategy within our organization. You'll see that later, and provides a global view for all people within CyberShift to view progress in an account. So it establishes the discipline. For us in particular, we sell workforce management systems to large enterprise clients. Our sales cycle is long. So we needed to understand very quickly, our goals was to increase our win rates and compress the sales cycle. That's what we determined would be, if we were able to do that, that we would be most productive. So it's very important for us to understand the deals that are going to happen. specifically on the funding area that Steve mentioned. Will this deal happen? Can the client fund it? Can they support it? Do they have a business case, etc.? And can we win it? The objective was to eliminate no decision. The worst thing in a complex sales situation with a long sales cycle is to end up with no decision. If you can eliminate that in the beginning, and you're only dealing with opportunities that you're either going to win or lose, your productivity has increased. So this has been very helpful to us, and our sales have grown. We were able to grow revenue 34% compounded annual growth rate per year, averaging 34% over a 4-year period. And this tool has really helped us to identify the deals that we can win and go after them, and it has improved our win rates, and we're able to very much compress our sales cycle by eliminating those accounts that are not going to do anything.
That's great. Let me move on. Thank you, Steve. Let me move on and go to the next area of our SOS process, and that is absolutely dealing with influence. And influence as it relates to a sales opportunity. Now, before we get into that, one of the things we do throughout the SOS workshop is create these little action planning notes. So for each module that we go through in the workshop, we spend time at the end of the module giving salespeople a time to develop some actions that they need to do based on the module that they just went through. In other words, what actions do we need to do, for example, to help us in this qualification process to make our deal more effective so that we have a better chance of competing and we have a better chance of winning the deal. And you'll see that each of the actions is looked at from the perspective of how can this action help strengthen our position in the sales campaign, obtain some missing information. If we don't know what's the client's driving reason to change, we need to understand that better. If we don't know if the project has been funded, we need to understand from the client, has the funds been allocated for this particular project? And lastly, how do we soften any weaknesses we may have vis-a-vis our competitors? And we'll see a little bit more of that in just a few minutes. So what I'm going to do next is contrast the views of authority and influence in a sales campaign. And I think that's very important to see that and to understand the difference between authority and influence. For example, if you look at a traditional organization structure, there are two things that you can determine really quickly from an organization chart. The first thing is who has rank in the organization, who reports to who, so we kind of see from the organization structure who has the authority. Second, we understand the function that each of those particular silos performs. So those are the two we can get. What we can't get from a traditional organization chart is what's the level of influence. Players A, B, and C in the authority chart have equal authority because of their rank in the organization. But when you get to influence, players A, B, and C, the same players you saw on the authority organization chart, may have different levels of influence as it relates to this sales campaign. In addition to that, you may have other players in the organization who are not on the organization chart and have a level of influence. For example, player D you see here on the influence chart has a level of influence. They weren't even on the organization chart. Player E on this influence chart perhaps comes from outside the organization. He or she may be a consultant, a business associate, a friend of one of the key players. So what we're going to do is we're going to create an influence map. And on that influence map, we are going to place the players who have authority and influence as it relates to this sales opportunity. And the people in the center of the influence map, they have the most influence. So they could be shown as the center of power. People on the outer edge here in the yellow area of the influence map as it appears on your screen, they have the least influence, but they still have some level of influence as it relates to this sales opportunity. So what we're going to do is we're going to create these little title blocks, okay? And on the title block, it's going to have the player's name and their title. And then you're going to show the player's formal role in the buying process, if any. We're going to show what our relationship is with that person. And third, we're going to show any level of past contact we may have had. This also may be a player that we've never met, and we want to indicate that we need to meet this player. We check the box in this fashion. And if our access has been blocked to that player, we can show that also. So when we look at a player and try to determine their level of influence, we look at, first of all, the indicators of influence. Indicators of influence come from really four main areas, and I'm going to cover them very quickly. And by the way, the charts and slides you're seeing in this presentation are a very tiny subset of the PowerPoints that we use in the actual workshop. But let's talk about the indicators of influence. First of all, capabilities. How is this executive contributed to the success of the organization? Secondly, connections. How is this executive connected to other key players in the organization? Thirdly, what kind of vision does this executive or key player demonstrate? Or does this executive establish the vision and direction for the organization or for the business unit? And lastly, what kind of value does this executive create and deliver, and how is this executive shown that in the past? So those are the indicators of influence. So let me go back to my tool. Going back to the toolkit I showed you before, and we're going to go to the second tab of that toolkit, and that tab is the influence map. And you see that appearing on the screen right now. Now, the first thing is that we have a set of instructions there, so in case the salesperson forgets how to create these title blocks and place them on the dashboard, he or she can do that. But we teach this in the workshop, so people come away from the workshop with a total understanding of how to create the influence map. So the first thing we have to do is to identify what some of these sectors mean. You see that it's cut into 8 different sectors, and each sector can define a department, for example. It can define an outside organization. It's up to you how you define the sectors. So let me just start off, and I'm just going to do a couple of them here just to show you how easy this is to do. But we have to define what these sectors are. So we have to enter, for example, the department name. So we might have a sales and marketing department. So we're going to key that in. You can see how easy it is to do that. And then we just click the tab, and it puts it right there. Second thing is, I'm just going to do 3. We have finance. Not very good at keying. The finance department might be another area. And thirdly, let's put somebody from outside the organization. We're just going to identify a consultant who has some level of influence as it relates to this opportunity. And again, don't forget, as we create this chart, we're looking at players who have a level of power and influence as it relates to the sales opportunity. So all I do is pull up a dashboard here. I'm going to put it closer to the screen so you can see it. And on this dashboard are pieces of information we're looking for, the person's name. I'm going to put my name on here. And I'm going to say that I am the VP of Finance. And my role in this process, formal role, is I am the approver of any decision that may take place. My relationship with the salesperson is I'm kind of neutral, and I've actually never met the salesperson. And from the salesperson's perspective, he needs to meet me. So I'm going to create that title block. I click Create New. You can see that it places that title block in the center of the influence map. It doesn't know where I belong, but you know, as I look at this, I think about myself, or you know, my role in the sales campaign. I'm the VP of Finance now, not the salesperson. So let's say I have a very low level of influence as it relates to this opportunity. So I just say clear fields, and I go to the next person. You can see it put the title block in that area. The next person I'm going to say is Steve Tafaro. Steve is let's say he's the VP of Sales, or let's give him his current name. I think I can put that many squares in there. VP of Channel Management. And the role he has is he is the decision maker for this particular project. He is my sponsor, okay, he is the salesperson's sponsor. Level of past contact, extensive contact. I've had a lot of contact with him. Say Create New, puts me there. I'm just going to move Steve over to here, because he is the most powerful person in this organization. I've been dealing with him for a long time. And lastly, I'm going to say clear field. And one other person, I'm going to put John Shaw. And John is my consultant. And no formal role in the buying process. I have no relationship with that person, no past contact. He's also somebody I need to meet. And let's just say my access to him has been blocked. I create him, puts him there, and I'm going to move him out here. So you can see that it's that easy to create the people of power and influence as it relates to this sales opportunity. Now I can also show you, who influences who. And John Shaw, the consultant, he may influence both Steve Bistritz, this guy we're talking about, just say connect. And he may also influence Steve Tafaro. So, and I say connect. You can see how easy it is now. We spent maybe 2 or 3 minutes creating this influence map, 3 players, very easy to do, and very easy to modify if things change. So this quickly shows the sales manager, for example, who are the people of power and influence as it relates to this opportunity. Now, Steve, quickly, any ideas from you about the power of the influence map as it relates to the value it delivers to you?
Yeah, it's extremely powerful because I have not seen this on any other tool, and I think what it does, this is the hardest thing for salespeople to do. They tend to get very comfortable with certain people that they're comfortable with, or vice versa, and not to look through the organization, both from an influence standpoint and a power standpoint, to see who else is going to be part of that decision process. And many times, by forcing them to take that view, I've seen the influence map with 10 or 12 people in it, and what it does for us, it gives us an opportunity to look at those people and devise strategies as to how we go after them, how we contact them, and it just provides the organization with a global view of the key people we need to be in front of. If we win a deal and we now have a client and we're trying to sell more systems to that customer, the influence map provides vision for those people who are going to engage an existing customer to sell more product to. certainly helps our professional services group. It's very, very important to identify this, and this tool does it effectively.
Great. Okay, thank you. Okay, let's move on. I'm going to talk about strategy now and talk about how this plays a role in a sales campaign. In our SOS workshop and process, we actually have 3 different strategies that can be implemented. I'm just going to show you one here just for you to get an idea of how we facilitate this. The most important, or one of the most important, is the direct strategy, and we describe that as a frontal approach where the client perceives you have superiority with your solution and or your company. And some of the criteria associated with that is that you have a clear and unique solution fit, you have a previous client relationship, you're the first on the scene for the opportunity, you have an immediate or quick decision from the client, they're going to do something very quickly, and lastly, there's a swift implementation. Now, here I'm going to show you on the next chart the 3 strategies and how you develop a competitive sales strategy. First of all, you use the direct strategy when your solution completely addresses the client's buying criteria and delivers specific, compelling business value. If you can't do that, you may have to look at what we call an alter strategy. And this is used when one of the following conditions exist. The client's buying criteria is not completely met by your solution. A competitor has convinced the client that they have the solution that provides the best value. If you can't do that, you may have to look at using what we call a segment strategy, where you only address a portion of the client's buying criteria. So those are the 3 strategies: direct, alter, and segment. And let me move on and show you then what are the steps to setting a strategy. Well, number 1, you have to analyze the client's business initiative and the buying criteria, and then look closely at the buying criteria established by key executives. Which of those executives set that buying criteria? Secondly, you have to examine your competitors and determine their strengths and weaknesses, and then the strengths and weaknesses of your solution. And you have to be very, very analytical about this and very, very complete. You look at, from a realistic standpoint, what are those strengths and weaknesses, and how do your strengths and weaknesses match up against your competitors. Number 3, you're going to look at what competitors have done in the past for this opportunity or similar past opportunities. What strategy have they used? How have they gone after a deal with similar clients or similar past opportunities? And then lastly, you use all that information to select your strategy. But most importantly, as you select a strategy, you're going to try to align your actions with the strategy you selected. So the next thing I'm going to talk about very quickly is creating a value proposition, because that's an important part of the process. And continually creating the value that you deliver to an organization is important. So in creating a value proposition, you look at you, your company, and your solution. Those are 3 elements. What do you personally bring to the table? What resources can you bring from your company? And how does your solution deliver value to the client? You look at how that overlaps with the client's key business initiative, and that describes your specific business value. So when you're developing a value proposition, you have to look at what's important to the client. How does your solution create value for the client? And lastly, how can you demonstrate your capability? Where have you done something like this in the past? So we've talked about strategy. We talked a little bit about value proposition. Developing comprehensive actions is really the last step. And here, what we're going to do is take those action planning notes we used in the workshop. We only use them in the workshop. We don't use them afterwards for live deals that you pursue after you attend the workshop. That was just a way to get you structured, thinking about how you create actions and how do you do that for each phase of this process. What we're going to do in our action planning area is describe what needs to happen what's the specific action that needs to take place, who or how, when will it happen, what time frame will it take place, who will do it, who in the sales organization has the responsibility to implement the action, and then how will it help? How will it help strengthen our position in a sales campaign, obtain some of the missing information we were talking about before, and then soften any weaknesses? So I've talked about those things, but let me go back to the toolkit for a minute and show you what we do now. Okay, and this is now page 3 of the 3-page opportunity plan that we were creating as it relates to our opportunity. And on this page, we have strategy, value proposition, and action planning. And again, what we do when we select our strategy is we look at what our competitors' solution is. We can put 2 competitors on this chart, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, and then what's the probable strategy that competitor will use. And then we have to look at, what's our solution, what are our strengths, what are our weaknesses, and then what strategy will we implement. There's a place on the tool for our value proposition. We provide templates for developing that. And you can see at the bottom here is a place to put the action planning pieces that we talked about before in the 4 different areas. And we can make that as long as we want. We can add actions. You can see I just click this button and you can put more actions onto the plan. So those are the 3 pages of the opportunity plan. It's a 3-page plan, not a 10 or 12-page plan. You saw what they were comprised of: selecting the strategy, influence, and the first one was on our opportunity assessment. Let me go back to the PowerPoints real quickly. This is actually the testing process. Let me quickly describe it to you, and then we can go and ask any questions, and we can have Steve have some words about how this tool has provided value to him. In the testing process, and this is a kind of a formal process, but sales managers implement this. This is the reinforcement process that sales managers use. We can help you with that. We have a process for teaching managers a little bit more in depth about this. We have a field guide for managers to use in this testing process, 3-stage testing process. And what you're going to see here in each of the 3 phases is what the opportunity reviewer does. That's the person, the salesperson who owns the opportunity. It could be a sales team that own the opportunity, and what they do in the process. And then the reviewers. They're going to be reviewers that look at the opportunity plan that the owners are demonstrating, and the reviewers help the owners improve their plan. So the first part of the testing process is to validate the plan. So the opportunity owners present their plan, again, 3-page plan. The reviewers listen and prepare questions, and then the reviewers ask questions to help clarify the plan. They don't challenge the plan. They're just trying to understand what's going on in this particular sales opportunity. And then in phase 2, we do what we call test the plan. The owners are in a separate area or room where they anticipate the challenges and prepare recommendations. Reviewers do the same thing in a separate room, and then they come together in the last phase of the process, and the owners present the challenges and recommendations they thought that the reviewers would come up with and ways to improve their opportunity plan, and then the reviewers do the same thing. The benefit of this process is you do this not in the client's office, but in your office, so that you come away with a very much improved opportunity plan that the salesperson can use to pursue the sales opportunity. So let me go and summarize this and summarize the value of it, and then I'll get Steve on the line, and he's going to tell us a little bit more about what he thinks the value is to his organization, and then we'll have time for questions. But using this process, we believe that sales managers are able to quickly and effectively assess the status of each sales opportunity, and that could be whether it's a transaction or a complex sale. Secondly, it provides guidance to salespeople by asking critical questions and suggesting key actions. So they have a visual tool, very easy to use. Salespeople love this tool, and they love each phase of it. Even the influence map, they absolutely love developing an influence map because it's so easy to do, and it provides value to them. So the tool provides value to them as well as providing value to the organization. It enables the sales manager to improve their ability to forecast deals with a higher level of confidence because they know where we are in the sales campaign. And lastly, it improves close rates by having salespeople focus on the deals that they have the best chance of winning. Now, Steve, any comments on this in terms of, I've put this up as what I think is the value to sales managers basically from what I hear sales managers telling me about the process. Let's hear from you what you think about the value of the tool and the process for you and your organization.
Well, I think it's extremely valuable. It's easy to use. It's simple. And it does take a little time to initially train everybody. I think the one-day workshop is very, very helpful, but then we spend some time beyond that just reinforcing it as we introduce it to our salespeople. The key thing for us is we've got a 5-step sales process: qualify, verify, position, solve, and close. It's very, very important. It's up to the salespeople initially to qualify and verify the fact that we have an opportunity that we can win, and the client will make a decision. And so the first page is critical to that. Once we reach that point, we make a decision within our company to pursue the deal. And everyone has equity in it. I do, the salesperson, and everyone else on our team that's involved in this particular opportunity. And at that point, we then begin to look at the influence map, and we begin to set strategy and action. And that's critical. Two things that are very critical there is the ability to articulate value and have the client understand it. If we can do that, it mitigates pressure from low-price alternatives. So if we can establish value, we can ask more for our solution and compete very effectively against the people who are just competing with us on price. The second thing that's critical is that it forces salespeople to think. The actions are based on current position. As your position in an account changes, the actions that you have to undertake also change. And that is that happens on a virtual basis. So our salespeople need to constantly adjust, and this tool provides that. We review accounts. I review accounts with them every 2 weeks. You'll be surprised at the familiarity that you get within the organization on an account once it's reviewed, so that your subsequent reviews go very quickly. But that's how we use it. It's, like I said, it has helped us tremendously in improving our win rates and compressing the time to sell. And those two ingredients are critical to increase sales productivity in my mind. Thanks, Steve. That's about it.
Okay. Thank you, Steve. We appreciate your input, appreciate you being with us. I'll say more about that later, but a couple of questions have come in, and we'll answer some of them real quickly. The first question is that I can answer really easily is this webinar being recorded, and will it be made available to attendees? The answer to that is yes, because it is being recorded, and it will be available on my website. So if you go to the home page on my website, you will be able to see that recording and get it. The second question that came in was related to the qualification process, and Steve, I'll ask you again to maybe spend another minute on this to answer this in a little bit more depth. That was, how does the SOS tool help you with the qualification process? You spent a little bit of time on that on the front end, but I didn't, maybe this questioner wanted a little bit more. Anything else you might want to say about the qualification process?
Yeah, I mean, we look at the three areas. Basically, the ability for the client to fund the project. Here's a perfect example. If there is a driving need or change or critical issue within the client organization, then their ability to fund the project is probably going to happen. If there's no driving need, though, if they're looking to do something because they want to standardize or whatever, it's very, very important that the salespeople understand that you may be competing for funds, and that we have to really then establish value, and we have to make sure that the client has a good business case to go get the money if, in fact, they want the deal. In many cases, you could go through a whole sales cycle, be awarded the business, the client goes for funds, and they buy a crane instead of your software. That's not very good. So we've got to make sure that this deal, if this deal happens, the client can fund it. Obviously, can we provide the solution? And the relevant executive and the ability to connect with the organization is probably the hardest thing for us to do, because we are selling to new accounts, and we don't know a lot of the people in the organization, but the ability to go develop the people we need to deal with, ask the right questions, and set strategies. We've got strategies to find the right people. So this process has opened our eyes to do that. So we follow the three areas, but the questions behind each area provide the discipline and a roadmap for the salespeople, which has been very, very helpful.
Great. Appreciate that. Thank you, Steve. Another question that came in that I'll try to answer is, does this tool work best in a complex sales situation with a long sales cycle, or can it work with more of a commodity sale? I think you heard, number one, Steve just described how it works in a complex sales situation with a long sales cycle. But the answer to the other question is absolutely. Can it work with more of a commodity sale? No question about it. This tool and this process is really tuned to work in both or anything in between, because it's easy to develop a strategy. It's easy to develop the actions, and it's a very, very focused process. So it's not elongated. You don't have to do a lot of different things. You focus on a few key areas that can help you win the deal. So if you've got a commodity sale that you're pursuing, it's fairly easy to use this for a commodity sale, because you can do it very quickly. So it works in both areas, or like I said, both areas, or anything in between. The last question was, somebody was asking for a presentation on pricing strategy. I really can't address that. That's not something that I do in terms of workshops I provide. The workshops that I focus on, as you saw from my website, are selling at the executive level, which is really associated with my new book called Selling to the C-Suite, the SOS Sales Opportunity Snapshot process that we just reviewed today, and lastly, I have a workshop called Strategic Account Snapshot that really looks at developing an account plan. What we're looking at, SOS, is an opportunity plan focused on a sales opportunity. So I want to conclude the session. We said we'd be here for approximately an hour, and that time is just about up. And I want to just summarize by saying that I hope you received value from my webinar today. As you probably heard in my voice, I'm excited about the value that can be delivered from this workshop. Steve just described some of the value. He talked about the increase in sales that he's able to achieve over a reasonable time frame and a year-by-year compound growth rate for which the SOS tool has helped him, again, according to him. So I'd like to thank our guest, Steve DeFaro, for
joining us
today. Steve, I sincerely appreciate you being with us, and I wish you continued success with your business. And I know that SOS will continue to play a role in that. If any of you on the line would like additional information about SOS, you can contact the person who referred you to this webinar or contact me directly. My contact information is on the screen right now. You see my website and my email address. As I said, a replay of this webinar will be available on my website, sellexcel.com. It'll probably be out there early next week. It'll be on the home page so you can access it. So I'd like to thank all of you for attending this session today, and I hope you make it a great day. Thank you very much, and goodbye.